You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And here I am. And welcome to another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. I am running a little bit late because if you notice the actual title, I was still in the middle of watching the last 2 episodes of Squid Game. And so far, this last season is, if I could say this, a little bit disappointing because I want to be more invested, but all the characters that I found interesting so far in this series, well, no spoilers in this, but some of it was not as, if I would say, as dramatic as in season 1. Season 1 to me was the GOAT in everything here. And there's Tori. Yep, Tori is here. It's like, oh, I was wondering if he was okay. No, I'm perfectly fine. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that happened earlier this week here. Again, it's Squid Games. Squid Games, yeah, people going to die, but like I said, there's no spoilers. But there was like multiple storylines going into season 2 and what they called season 3, because what they end up doing is they split up season 2 into 2 halves. So we got part 1 of season 2 towards the Christmas season of last year. So now they're giving us what they call season 3, which is the second half of really season 2. And the second half, it kind of went south, if you get my drift here. It went south in a hurry. Now, the way that they tell the story still has the same genuine effects, but it's not the same quality, if I could say it that way. It's not something that, especially how they left it on this one cliffhanger between these 2 seasons, how everything just kind of flipped on a dime and everything. But yeah, it's not just like they died. It's just more along the lines of not the fact that they died. It is just like how someone died and met their end here. But nevertheless, we gotta still do our due diligence here, because we still got to do our business in, which is, oh yeah, Stupid O'Clock is still happening 1 hour into the show here, or actually I should say about 55 minutes into the show, because I was about 5 to 10 minutes late. Then that is followed up by Last Man Standing at 1. Then you get a little bit of a respite for Nevermind the Furthermore here on Monday at 10 a.m. Central with Nicholas Tockert. And don't forget about Comic Book Spectrum that happens Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And speaking of Comic Book Spectrum, yeah, we had difficulties. I came back for part 2, explain what was going on here. And to my chagrin here, and to say it this way, I fought Facebook and I won. What do I mean by I fought Facebook and I won? I fought Facebook because they temporarily banned my account. because their AI tool flagged a post of mine from 4 years ago for violating their community standards. I sent it to human review. They say, "Oh, our fault. Our AI tool should have never flagged it." So I lost out on like a day and a half worth of being able to communicate. And unfortunately, I could not even stream to our Facebook page for CGC Studios because it blocked out everything here. Am I going to be cussing out and saying some choice words? Not anymore. Because like I said, I felt vindicated by that review. That's the reason why I came back with that part 2 to explain what actually happened, and all the other computer technical issues with sound and everything got fixed. So we were good to go here. So that's one of the reasons why, Comic Book Spectrum had problems this past Thursday. But we're going to be back to our regularly scheduled show this upcoming Thursday with no more technical issues. Windows 11 is working perfectly fine on the laptop that I'm on right now. We're not going to have any more problems with Facebook. We're going to be okay. And again, welcome to those people who are out there in LinkedIn land. Yes, we are broadcasting on LinkedIn again here. We're still, trying to do our trial here to say hello to the other professionals that are in the comic book industry or in media in general here. So on that note, I know what you guys are looking forward to. I know what's going on. And I always start the show with this here. And I know this is kind of like the people's favorite here. We got new comic book pickups for the week here. And what did we get that came in this week? We got a small stack of books that came in this week. We're going to start out with the Harvey Comics version of The Spirit, issue number 1. Now, there's only 2 issues of the Harvey Comics version of Will Eisner's The Spirit, but this is issue number 1 right here. We got that in the mail today here. Not today, but over this past week. We also got Catwoman When in Rome, issue number 2. So the only issue of When in Rome that I'm missing as of right now is issue number 6, and I'm looking at a couple auctions for that is concerned here. We got more issues of Doom Patrol from volume 3 from where I was missing here. So I got the issue number 12, issue number 13, and issue number 17. So we got 3 more towards finishing off that volume. And then we got some Gen 13 bootlegs to finish off Gen 13 bootlegs. So we got issue number 4 that was missing, issue number 6, issue 7, and this is issue 18 of the regular Gen 13 series, another one that was missing here. And then we got Wonder Woman annual number 1 from the George Perez era. That's annual number 1. And the last book of the evening here is from volume 2 of Mr. Miracle, issue number 25. Now, issue number 25 of Mr. Miracle is fun because this is one of the few issues where Big Barda actually did pro wrestling. So that was a fun issue. I won't ruin that one for those who haven't read it as of yet. It is a funny issue because of the simple fact that originally Barda thought pro wrestling was real. it was funny. It's funny, but it is what it is here. And we got Aaron in the house here. So good evening, Aaron. Hopefully everything is good going good there. But outside of that, everything is pretty much hunky dory today, at least for today. Not like on Thursday here. But I was having fun with Squid Game, watching Squid Games and everything on the final 2 episodes here. And there's just certain things that I wish they would have wrote a lot better in this last season, because they cut it short. They did cut cut the series short. And when I say cut the series short, it's just that they started some storylines that could have led into other Squid games, and they could have left the main character leave the series and continued on with other people. But Netflix in their infinite wisdom decide to cancel it at its height up at the height of its popularity in that aspect here. Am I enjoying this pseudo season 3? Not so much, because like I said, there's certain characters in this season that I can see a lot of people getting attached to, and how they kind of move towards the end. It kind of makes you sad. It kind of makes you sad in a lot of things. And episode 2 in season 3 almost made me shed a lot of tears. And it almost made me shed a lot of tears because a lot of the characters that I could see people pulling for, a lot of stuff happened to them. I mean, a lot that you could not see any of this type of stuff coming. You couldn't. You could not. And I kind of wish that they would have had it where it would have ran a full season of maybe I think it would have been close to 13 episodes back to back to back to back to back to back. If it would have ran like 13 episodes straight through for a full season 2, I think it would hit a little bit better than what they did to make us wait for like the final 6 to 7 episodes, and saying that the 6 or 7 episodes was a season. To me, it's kind of like stretching it a bit here. But overall, if you really want to know what Squid Game is really about, watch season 1. Because season 2 is going to, and the way that I'm at the tail end. I got, maybe 15 more minutes of episode 5 or 6 and whatever 6 or 7 is to watch to get to the very end. Only thing I can say so far as Squid Game is concerned, as far as the overall series, season 1 was far superior. Season 1 was far superior, and I just don't believe that they would resolve what happened in the cliffhanger between so-called 2 and 3 the way that they did. And it just, I don't know. I don't know. I just hate when stories get rushed because because the show got canceled and things got rushed. I could say the same thing for like Black Lightning. Black Lightning was actually setting things up for another season, and then they got canned, and there were certain things that had happened in the series that one storyline pretty much didn't happen, and the one character suffered for that. So at the very tail end of the series, the original actress that was playing that character came back for like the final episode, just to be like, okay, everything is back hunky dory and everything, and there's nothing to worry about, and they kind of didn't really resolve what they needed to resolve here. It was just what it was. But that's just the nature of television in a nutshell, dealing with cancelization and writing stories to satisfy certain things. It's like there's certain cliffhangers, certain series that have on cliffhangers, and they just leave you there. And then there's certain times that they try their best to resolve everything to kind of give you like that clean, series finale that everybody wanted here. At least with Black Lightning, they kind of gave you the whole, series finale with the main big bad and Black Lightning himself. But some of the supporting cast and characters, not so much. not so much. But then again, they tried to set up a couple of backdoor pilots and everything to kind of see if they could gauge, if certain characters were popular enough and everything. But it was what it was here. With Squid Game, I kind of feel the exact same way here. It's just like, yeah, they rushed a lot of stuff. So far they're giving us kind of a ending, but there's still a lot of cliffhangers that's not going to get resolved. A lot that's not going to get resolved here. The one thing that I kind of like, but it fell flat, and like I said, no spoilers, is the final confrontation between two of the main characters. The one that's supposed to play the big bad and one that's supposed to play the hero. And it comes back down to something that was done to the main big bad, that he to finally test the main hero. He put him through the same trial that he had to go through in order to win the time that he did. And he watched it, and the main character did not do it. It wasn't in his nature to do so. Is the main big bad truly evil? No. But it shows you the dichotomy of two people who actually won that game. Yeah, the main big bad was a former winner himself. So that's the reason why that dichotomy is so important. I mean, the main big bad also in season one, I'm not going to say, spare you from any spoilers, because remember at the end of season one, the main up and coming big bad, who is the big bad in season two, saved his brother who infiltrated the game. The brother in season two came back, and now he has to face the consequences of that too. But you got to watch this, find out to see what's going on with that here. And it looks like we got Elaine in the house here, so we got Elaine here. Uh, outside of that, it's kind of like one of those things that I feel with a little bit better storytelling, and there are certain characters I was rooting for to at least make it to the last game, to make it interesting. And then we lost certain characters due to certain story plots, and it's interesting in that aspect too. Like I said, no spoilers. I'm not saying who's doing what and how and why. I just saying it's just interesting in that aspect. I really wish I could tell more people, but this season of Squid Game came out, I think it was either this past Wednesday or last Wednesday. So it's still pretty new. So I'm not going to spoil anything. So be happy I'm doing no spoilers, because I really want to talk about it, because I am not too happy with season 3, or season 2.5, as I call it. I'm not too happy about it. It gives me like episode 2 got me in my feels, because it was a lot of stuff that happened that didn't happen in season 1 that made more sense going into the third game. The third game was weird because it was a interesting take on a of another childhood game here. And as always, Game 5 is something that is brand new to the series. It will always be brand new to the series here. But Game 4 was interesting. Was an interesting take on a childhood favorite. And it seems like everybody is greeting Elaine showing up here. Now, like I said, I'm not going to ruin Game 4, Game 5, and Game 6 is pretty much what it is. It's a different take on it, but it's still pretty much what it is. But nevertheless, I will stop there because I want you guys to watch it. Maybe next week. Maybe next week for Front of the Desk, we'll talk about the full series in a nutshell and everything here. Also, over this past week, I also watched Captain America: Brave New World. What I truly think about the movie, it's not bad, but it's not canon. By no means was it canon. They got a lot of the characters wrong. A lot of the characters wrong in this movie if you go based upon comic book canon. But if you throw that out the window, you push that off to the side and look at it for what it is, it was not a bad movie. I mean, it made Sam Wilson seem like he should be Cap, or the ideological Cap, the way that Steve Rogers wanted it to. If his mantle was actually passed correctly, this would be the way that his mantle would have been passed. Now, when it comes to comic book canon, a lot of this stuff is a bunch of garbage. It's like I'm not going to lie. It's a bunch of garbage when it comes to, source material. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad movie. That's why I keep trying to tell people. It's like, oh, it's like it didn't stick to canon, so you think it's bad. It's like, no, it was a good movie, but it's not comic book canon. And I believe for all of those that keep saying, we getting all these comic book movies, this should translate back over to getting people to read the comics. Guess what? If the movie does not focus on the canon of the comics, there's nothing for a movie watcher to make that transition or cross over to comics. They're always going to be a movie watcher. Always wanted to see it in the movie because the movie story is far different than what's in the comic books. It's no different than how a lot of people look at Tolkien for Lord of the Rings, or Star Wars for all the different novels and everything to that magnitude. The movie is going to be vastly far different than the novels and comics. And that's going to be understandable. The problem here is adhering to canon. There's certain canons that you can't just throw out the window to get a good movie out of it. They kind of sort of did this with Brave New World to a greater degree. And I understand what they was doing with General Ross. Now, I must say this. Harrison Ford was a good pick to play General Ross as president. He would have been a bad pick if he was still in the role of general in the army. I will explain why a little bit later here, but I see what again. It's like, yeah, but let's be honest, the MCU isn't totally canon. But that's the problem. That's the problem. They have to have enough canon up in there to make it viable. The whole thing about, and here's the whole question again, and that's why I love the very beginning of it, of Brave New World, because Isaiah Bradley pretty much told Sam, I forgot the name of the new Falcon that he has with him, because he has his own version of Falcon now. So his version of Falcon was there when Isaiah Bradley was telling us, like, yeah, he has those super soldier cells, so he pretty much has to be on his game. He doesn't get that. That out that is like, oh, I got super strength, I got super endurance, I got, super density, or all this other stuff that all the others had. He's a normal man. He has to train harder. And that was one of the things that this newer Falcon was looking up to him. Unlike all the other Caps, he had no super soldier serum. And even Bucky comes back in this movie. It was like, no, that's the real reason why Steve picked you. Everybody could look up to him for inspiration. People going to look to you as I need to emulate you. You are exactly I can actually be you. No super soldier serum, no nothing. You can actually change my mind. I'm not an idea to adhere to. You are the actual aspiration of where we need to go. And that was kind of like the running theme of Brave New World. Yeah, you could have taken the super soldier serum, but why? Do you really need it? You don't. And it was a running thing, but that whole thing about doubt comes into play. And it came back into play for that final scene too. And for those who don't know about the final scene and haven't seen Brave New World here, unfortunately, I can't do spoiler free here. Sam could not go round 2 with Red Hulk. He barely escaped from round 1. When General Ross or when President Ross got back up, everybody was trying to tell Sam, was like, oh, we will have backup here, this, that, yada, 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 yada. It's like, you are in no condition to fight. It's like, no, we have to end this here and now, but I'm not going to fight him. We're going to have to do this way. And he did the one thing that most other people could not do to a Hulk, which is make him stand down, not through force, but through logic. Not too many people could do that to Bruce Banner. A handful of people can, but not too many people can do it. What Sam did is something that is hard to do in comic book canon to any Hulk. But for the simple fact of where they were fighting at and knowing General Ross and giving General Ross the benefit of the doubt that he had no control over the situation that he was in, was able to talk him down and talk him out of his rage, and made him turn back into just regular, President Ross. That was kind of like the thing here. Yeah, he does bring a big gravitas, and that's the whole thing. It's one thing to inspire somebody, but it's another thing where somebody can actually become like you. He's pretty much the embodiment of the average human being spirit, being the patriot, as opposed to the ideas that Steve Rogers have. Steve Rogers has faults. So do Sam. But what Sam does is showing that how the average person could stand up to threats like the Hulk and anybody that's superhuman and still come out on top. Does he get leeway? No. Like he said throughout the whole movie, he always has to be on top of his game, because if he's not, he's dead. And that's the problem with being Sam Wilson as Cap. He always has to be on top of his game. If he has even the slightest bit of an off day, it could mean the difference between him living or dying, or multiple people around him dying. It's not something to take lightly here. That kid was cute, he has his own pop. Yep. Yeah, you want a Sam and Bucky movie. Well, that was the whole thing about what was it, Captain America Winter Soldier, the TV series. And it's surprising enough that Bucky is now is going to be a senator. So it's going to be Senator James Barnes here. Widow is a different animal. And I just got through talking to somebody about that too. Dealing with Black Widow, what they did is that they didn't do certain things about her going into the movies the correct way. They introduced her in Avengers. Well, actually, Iron Man 2. They introduced her in Iron Man 2. She was part of the Avengers with Shield and everything. And then when they did her movie, they did it as a flashback. And they did it, the flashback dealing with the Red Room and destroying everything, dealing with the Red Room and all the other stuff like that, and blah 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 blah. And I talked to a buddy of mine about that, and I was like, you know what? They kind of messed up there, because if they would have did a Black Widow movie the right way, if they stuck with canon, it would have been like the first person that she would have met in the MCU would have been Charlie Cox's Daredevil, because she first appeared in Daredevil comics way back when. And that would have been like the transitioning of her, questioning the orders of the Red Room and slowly building up to her actually contesting and destroying it in the movie that we end up getting here. But we never got that particular portion of it, because technically it should have been more than just one movie. And then the whole big to do with Marvel Studios and how they did Scarlet for the movie and all the other stuff and the role and everything. It could have been a lot bigger things. Scarlett Johansson would have been a mainstay as as Black Widow. But what ended up happening, they ended up killing her off in the Avengers movies and everything. And now we got the so-called sister taking over, technically. Yeah, I like that Sam had to think through a lot of what was going on, and he had to work through the why as well as for the what. Yeah. Again, they knew what they were doing when they passed the mantle to Sam. Even in the comic books, when they passed the mantle to Sam, it threw Hydra for a loop, because Hydra did not understand. It's like, you guys have the capability of making super soldiers, but yet you allowed this individual to become Captain America without taking it. Why? What is so unique about this guy where he does not need super soldier? What is the makeup of this person's build where he can stand up to a threat like us without super soldier serum? That to me, speaks volumes when you come to continuity and canon. The movies kind of applied some of that, but it didn't really get into a lot of the other stuff here. I was disappointed about what they did to Willow. Yes. She and Daredevil were a thing for some time. Yes. Again, that would, but that's like I was saying before, canon versus what they had to do for movies. What they have to do for movies, because again, us comic book readers, we have read these stories. We understand and we love these stories. But to get somebody who is a moviegoer to watch something like this, it has to attract and it has to be palatable for them. And a lot of times what it's saying comic books is not truly palatable for those who watch TV and movies like that. Will they be entertaining? Yes. But I believe that they would be more critical of a story than anything else here. Yeah, well, Marvel looks silly with ScarJo just premiering a film at Cannes that did very well. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, there was no reason. Like I said, what they did to her, what Marvel Studios did to her up under Disney during the pandemic was not called for. Was not called for. And I understand. I understand why she did what she did and why the character went away and everything. Did it open up the door for them with White Widow? Yes. I believe it opened up the door for that actress, and we saw what happened with. Well, I still haven't watched Thunderbolts here. I don't think Thunderbolts is on Disney Plus as of yet. But I'm kind of curious about how she would do with reuniting with Red Guardian in Thunderbolts. Bring it back up to continuity and canon. We got a Thunderbolts movie that has nothing to do with the Thunderbolts team that's in comic book continuity. So if you got moviegoers who love Thunderbolts, they don't have a comic book to go back to. The story was changed. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy actually was continuity. Well, I shouldn't say continuity. They changed its continuity, and then after it was successful in the movie, they made a comic book title to emulate this. But nobody goes back to the older Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm just surprised that Yandu survived. That's one of the only, I think, one of the few characters that was in the original Guardians of the Galaxy that eventually appeared in the newer one. Is Yandu, but that's going into a whole different thing here. See, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of the matter. They found a title that Marvel had. Then they go back to, they didn't use any of their original characters, and they just kind of like made a team up, and they built a movie franchise out of it. And like I said, they caught lightning in a bottle, and it became 3 movies. So what ended up happening then? After after the first movie, they went back, and it's like, oh, people can't go back to the Guardians of the Galaxy comic book because the characters are not there. There was no Gamora that was a part of Guardians of the Galaxy because she was part of Warlock and the Infinity Watch. There was no Nebula. There was no, again, Drax, Gamora. See who else. Rocket was doing his own thing. Rocket Raccoon had his own book. Groot was an afterthought. He was an old school Marvel character that they just pulled out of nowhere here. Let's see. I don't want to say no. It wasn't Star Fox because Star Fox. Well, it could be Star Fox. No, it can't be Star Fox. Star Lord. I was like Star Fox and Star Lord are 2 different characters. So Star Lord was I forgot what book he was a part of. So they got a hodgepodge of these characters that was all in different books, and they just brought them together, and it just worked. It just kind of worked for what it was. We didn't have no Charlie 17. We barely got Yondu. We barely got Vance Astro was not even in there. I mean, it's a lot of characters that was in the original Guardians of the Galaxy that never made it to the movies here. But it is what it is. I did like the fact that Guardians did introduce the Nova Corps. We never got the Nova movie that we really wanted to have. I wanted to see a Nova movie, but then again, which Nova do we talk about? Because as far as I remember, there was at least 3 different Novas that was in the Marvel universe that had their own books. So we have to worry about which Nova, if they did Nova the movie, which which member of Nova do we deal with? But it's kind of like one of those things here. And Elaine is saying, I think once Marvel got folks to buy a 6-foot Wolverine and a black Nick Fury, they believe that they could make whatever changes they wish without consequences. I'm thinking about the second part of your first statement here. 6-foot Wolverine. Only thing I can say is, actor wise, there's not too many 5'2", 5'3" actors that could pull off an attractive Wolverine. Just saying. Just saying. Just saying. Just like I doubt there would be too many 4'11" dudes that would play Puck if they ever did Alpha Flight. Just saying. Just saying. It's like you're gonna have to make some concessions to that. So, the Wolverine thing, that doesn't bother me. Black Nick Fury, I challenge that thought for one reason and one reason only. Like I said, coming back to canon. The Ultimates introduced a Black Nick Fury before they even started working with MCU movies and the MCU movies coming out here. It was after the first Iron Man movie that they started making Nick Fury, the Black Nick Fury, look like Samuel L. Jackson. That was the difference. So that was kind of like the key thing here. But the change for Black Nick Fury actually happened in Ultimates, in the very first volume of Ultimates. So that wasn't something that was MCU created. That was more Marvel did something in alternate universe time, and it stuck, and it worked, and they just brought it over to the movies, the movie canon than anything else here. But yeah, I truly believe that they feel that they can make changes any way that they want here. Not throwing shade at Jackman. No, I know you're not throwing shade at Jackman, but I'm just going to be like logical. And knowing that you come from a movie background, Elaine, just name me a couple of known actors who are male that is between the sizes of like 5'2" and 5'4", that is stocky of build, that is built well, that could fit the role of Wolverine. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that fits that build. And for something of this magnitude, for a franchise that has been untested, do you risk your movie with somebody that's unknown? I don't think so. That's a lot. That was kind of like allowable concessions here. Will comic book fans hate it? Oh yeah. We still hearing, oh, Hugh Jackman should never be Wolverine. It's like, well, who else are you going to get? Tell me one actor that you could have got that is Wolverine's actual height in the comic books. And that looks the part and fits the part that would make it work. I highly doubt that you could name anybody. Highly doubt it. No, Dinklage could not play Puck because Puck was Arabian. If you remember Alpha Flight, unlike Wolverine, Puck in his original incarnation was an Arabian adventurer who went ahead and found this one artifact. Now, Puck originally was about 6'4". He found this one artifact that gave him his ability, and it shrunk him down to 4'11". So that's the real thing here. So you could probably find somebody to play him in his normal vessel, but after he finds the artifact that makes to make him what he was, how are you going to find somebody that's going to be like 4'11" that fits that muscular, stocky build that can act? Not to say that Peter Dinklage can't play Arabian. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying in general, it's not an easy role to cast. And I feel the same way with Wolverine. You know, when it comes down to shorter, more built men, they're few and far between. Yeah, I'm way old school here. Never read Ultimates. Yeah, Ultimates, Nick Fury was black, and he was black. The Ultimates came out way before the Marvel movies came out here. It was in the middle. It was in the middle of the MCU phases that they started making the Nick Fury that they drew in Ultimates to look like Samuel L. Jackson. But that's history. You know, that's kind of like Marvel history in a nutshell. But getting back to what I was saying before here, as far as the problem with movies, comic book canon, and crossing the fan base over. The average movie watcher does not have something identifiable on that other side to come to in a lot of aspects here. So, like for example, if they watch Captain America: Brave New World, if I could say it in this aspect, the General Ross that is in the comic books, it's not like the General Ross that's in these movies. And they would never truly understand how cutthroat General Ross is, even though they kept saying it. They kept saying it. But they never showed it. They never showed it. And on top of that, the last time that we saw a cutthroat General Ross was back in the Incredible Hulk movie. And then on top of that, we finally found out what happened to Doc Blue, aka the leader. And they didn't even do him correctly. Because again, there was no need for him to kill Dum Dum Dugan. How you want to kill a mainstay from the original Shield and from the original Howling Commandos? You just don't up and kill one of those characters off willy-nilly, you know, for the sake of a movie. But that's why I say it comic book canon, went bye-bye at that point. But because I could separate comic book canon from the movie, I could enjoy the movie. The movie was good. For what they did in the movie was good. For what we got from what they saw, what the leader would have done, what we got of a Red Hulk, what we got from Sam Wilson. The only thing that I disagree with is how they handled Isaiah Bradley. And the reason why I say is like I don't agree with how they handle Isaiah Bradley is because of what happened in with Truth, Red, White, and Black. He wouldn't be as easily mind controlled that way. And then after he snapped out of it, he wouldn't have been, if I could say, as agreeable to go back to prison after it was all said and done. But if they wouldn't have made him agreeable to go back to prison, they would not have established that deeper bond between him and Sam. So I understood that. I got that. I'm not knocking it to say, oh, they should never have done it, but I understand the reason why they did. But like I said, separating comic book canon from what they did in the movie, that was a plot device for the movie to establish the relationship between him and Isaiah Bradley. Because again, Steve is not there. And to be quite honest, Steve was Bucky. Steve was for Bucky. Isaiah is going to be for Sam. Because again, If it wasn't for Sam, they still would have left Isaiah out of the books here, because the whole world would have still believed that Steve was the first instead of Isaiah. But it is what it is here. Also, I was a tad bit miffed that Blade lost his wooden daggers. Oh, see, I don't know. The I'm not sure if that was in the Deadpool movie or if this was going to be in the upcoming so-called Blade movie here. Yeah, the Blade movies were fun, but I preferred him when he was human. Yeah. The Blade movies, the Wesley Snipes Blade movies, just like I say, if it wasn't for the first Wesley Snipes Blade movie, we would probably not have superhero movies today. We owe a lot to New Line Cinema. I said cinema. We owe a lot to New Line Cinema for Blade. Because if Blade was never produced, we wouldn't have the comic book movies that we have today. That was the perennial standard going in. To me, it was like Blade, then what we got in the first X-Men movie, and then from there, when Marvel Studios did Iron Man, and that was like kind of like the transition here. Yeah, there was movies in between, a lot of other movies in between here, because we had a couple of Spider-Man movies, we had the awful Catwoman movie, we had Green Lantern movies, we had Superman movies in between there, we had a whole slew of Batman movies. But if it wasn't for Blade being a box office hit, we would have never had the influx of superhero movies. We wouldn't have the awful Spirit movie, but we had a somewhat successful Sin City. I mean, I could go on for days as far as that here. Yeah, I acknowledge that Snipes and New Line kept the idea for Marvel MCU viability. Yeah. I said Green Lantern. Even though it, I keep my judgment about Green Lantern to myself. Yes, Sin City to me opened up the door to make me think that they could have pulled off a Spirit movie, but it fell flat. It really fell flat. But I can say this: if it was, the movie gave me more of an appreciation for Marv as a character. Marv as a character in Sin City. I mean, he's just a man. Him and Kerrigan. I love those two characters in Sin City. Now, Kerrigan always get the raw deal, but Marv and Kerrigan, they're just great characters to make you want to watch that movie. And, with it being told in many pocket stories about different parts of Basin City, what's going on at the time makes it great. Oh, don't mention Lantern. It's like even Ryan Reynolds admit that he wasn't the right choice for it. I don't think it was Ryan Reynolds' fault for Green Lantern. I just truly believe that it was the writing. It was, how can I put this? Right actors, decent setting, poor writing. And because the writing was so poor, and they focused too much on Earth, that Green Lantern fell on its face. Yes. Oh man, let's see I can't think of his character right off the bat. He and to see him as a villain. He was a villain in Sin City. Just like I can't think of the other actor And I believe the other actor that was in there that played the son of the mobster, that after Kerrigan messed him up and they patched him back together, and he had like this orange hue and he smelled real bad because of how they had to revive him. I believe he went on to play Chrissy in Sopranos, the one that fell in love with old girl that eventually played Sue Richards in the Fantastic Four movie, Jessica Alba's character. So yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot there in Sin City. Now, A Dame to Kill For, that to me, it was okay. You know, Marv couldn't completely save that movie here, just like No Face couldn't save A Dame to Die For. But I did like No Face in the original Sin City here. And for those who don't know who No Face is, there is a character called really is No Face because nobody knows what his true face is. Only a handful of people know who he is only because they know his eyes. They only recognize him by his eyes. So you know he would be able to go around any parts of Basin City without really being detected, except for the one city that's owned by what would have been like the hookers and prostitutes, and only the head leader of that only the head leader of that knows who he is, only because she knows how his eyes are. You know, he's literally a man of 1,000 faces. Yeah, that's why I tell myself that had Leonard being hit, we wouldn't even have been gotten Deadpool. Yeah, mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I didn't watch the second Sin City. Yeah, I did. I did. Only like I said, I did because it's like the Marv scenes seemed like, you know, the second one seemed like it was going to be more about Marv, but it really wasn't. It was more about the betrayal of Marv and how Marv dealt with being betrayed. But it was interesting in that aspect here. But saying all that to say, it is, you know, it is kind of like one of those things where if you read the book, and again, another movie series that was different from the comic books. Oh, and don't get me started on V for Vendetta. I love what they did in the movie, but if I have not read that series, I probably would love that movie more. But because I read the series, I know what parts were left out and why they were left out, and and understood exactly why some of those things were left out, because some of those topics could not be approached in the early 2000s. By no means a lot of that stuff couldn't be approached in the early 2000s here. Spit from around my world. No, yes, he does. He does. I mean, he played a great V. He played a great V. And again, dang it, Natalie Portman played a great Evie. Sadly enough, she played a great Evie. I did not see her playing Evie, the character Evie, in that series the way that the book did, but she came close to it. She came close to it, and it is what it is. Yep, I knew who you was talking about. I knew who he was talking about. Of course. How can one of the toughest elves in Lord of the Rings not play V the way that he did, and played it with humor? He has a great humor with that role. See it up there, sword fighting with the dummy while watching Errol Flynn. Like, This was great. This was great TV watching here. Yeah, she brought a great deal of heart, soul, and just enough steel at the end. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. They did it. There was a lot of stuff that was in the comics that was not in the movie. Like, for example, what V actually saved her from. Evie was not this wholesome girl per se. She was misled, misguided, but she was not wholesome because she was out at night at the age that she was to try to get her first John because she was that hard up. That's according to the comics. Now, another thing, according to the comics, dealing with V for Vendetta is that you had a dystopian / totalitarian, if I could say, world at that point, because corporations owned the world after the end of a Third World War. In addition to that, we find out that there was genocide that occurred. Again, another thing that was left out in the movie was I think it was Mr. Finch's his heroin episode when he went back when he took heroin and went back to the concentration camp. And that's where we found out that the world that they were in went through genocide, because he specifically talks about all of the different cultures that was rooted out. The fact that there was no such thing as soul food or foods of different origin anymore. And how, this totalitarian corporate society, since corporations took the bulk of their wealth to rebuild the world. There was no more, if I could say, independent governments anymore. There was just if I could say, bigger entities, corporate entities that governs everything, from like television, police, and stuff to that magnitude. We got a lot of that stuff intact as far as how the world was set up, but they didn't get into a lot of the nitty gritty. They could not have a truly homogeneous cast in that aspect here, especially since they were doing a lot of stuff to mimic what would happen in Great Britain during that time frame. And yes, it was set in Great Britain. The book is set in Great Britain. The comic books were set in Great Britain. The movie was set in Great Britain. And a lot of the stuff that was going on in the comic book really played on the genocidal aspect of it. There were not too many ethnicities in there. And there was not too many people of other diverse backgrounds either. That's why when I forgot the guy's name here, when Evie stayed with the guy that had the Quran, and she saw what happened to him after they stormed his place. That's how she knew that V was really telling the truth about the world that they was in here. Yeah, V is on my list. Yeah. See, I was fortunate enough to buy the collected volume of it. So I was able to read the collected volume of all 12 issues of V for Vendetta. So you might be able to get the collected volume of V for Vendetta for somewhere about like $15 to $25. And you never know, you might be able to get James to get it, to find a copy cheaper for you, because you don't have to have the hardcover. I believe the soft cover one would have ran you about like 10, depending on if he was able to find a first edition of it. But yeah, that would be a great read to understand a lot of the stuff here, like the letters that he talked about from his cellmate. And surprisingly enough, the letters that was being passed around via whatever paper that they had available, led me to understand that, yeah, it was a dystopian, totalitarian type world at that point, because she was there incarcerated for not being hetero. And it was like, it just made me think, it's like, so these concentration camps really rooted out a lot of different things that if you didn't fit like a corporate standard, you were just gone. It was just like, that was it. You went to these camps and you rotted. And it also made me think that V could have been another ethnicity other than Caucasian. But the insistence of using Guy Fawkes makes me think otherwise, though. But they had it set up as like everything that he went through, what he had access to, the fact that he was highly intelligent, that it was just everything that he went through and all the testing that they did on him made me believe that he was some other ethnicity other than Caucasian. Because deep down, he was not a violent person, but yet at the same time, he was not a person that you want to push his buttons the wrong way. And we saw that after the fact here. Yeah, you need to ask James for that collected volume here. That would be a great read. Now, if you haven't seen V for Vendetta, the movie, I would suggest one or two things. If you want to enjoy the movie for what it is, watch the movie first before you read the books. But if you really want the background of what's really going on in that society, read the books first. Read that collected first, and then go and watch the movie. There she is. Falk, yeah, Guy Fawkes is one of the main folk heroes that actually bombed Parliament, and V actually did it. V actually did it in the books. He actually did something that Guy Fawkes didn't. Guy Fawkes attempted to do it, but was unsuccessful. V did it. Yeah, Fawkes. Yeah. Oh, you didn't have any interwebs for a while. That would explain it. No, but what we've been talking about here, and I'm glad that we've been talking about it. We're looking at movies that are comic book related, and the fact that a lot of the canon cannot be adhered to because moviegoers would not be interested in it. And even if they did fall in love with the movie, and we named several examples, there's no true comic book to go back to it that has that type of story the way that it was delivered in the movie here. Yeah, he's right up there with Robin Hood. Yeah, he is the anti this the anti this I can't even pronounce that 12 syllable word, but I know what you're talking about here. Watchmen is the closest thing to a one-to-one between comic book and movie, and you know how moviegoers like that movie. They hate it. They hated Watchmen. Moviegoers hated Watchmen. Comic book people loved it because it was one-to-one, except for the comedian stuff. They left out a lot of the comedian stuff because the comedian deep down was racist. But for the greater majority of it, Watchmen was one-to-one. Average moviegoer hated it. And that's part of the problem. Yeah, this established totalitarianism. Yep, you know exactly. You knew exactly where I was going for here. Yeah, not and she spelled it. It's like this, anti-disestablishment. Yep, you know it. But the average moviegoer didn't. Watchmen was kind of a box office bomb to a certain degree, which is the kind of like the talking point about it's the opposite of what I've been saying here. Why, sticking to comic book canon sometimes does not appeal to the average moviegoer. Because again, a lot of the story would not be believable or just makes sense. Not to say that Watchmen was a bad movie. The average moviegoer who had no idea what Watchmen was just didn't find it enjoyable. Yeah, that was why my oldest got me the omnibus and sits at my bedside. Yeah. Case in point, the new Fantastic Four trailer. Ben has a beard. Everyone lost their mind. That shouldn't matter. Why couldn't Ben Grimm have a beard? Who's to say that Ben Grimm couldn't have a beard before he became Rock? That is comic accurate. That is comic accurate, but makes no sense. Yeah, that's the whole problem with it. It's like people keep trying to make movie and TV audiences is the same as comic book. It's like, no, comic book audiences and comic book readers are vastly different from TV and movie watchers here. There is a different suspension of belief when it comes to reading comic books than what it is with television and movies. Comic books have a higher degree of that because, again, it's more on the fantastical as opposed to how movies and TV have to be somewhat a little bit more rooted in reality. And again, this is one of the reasons why a lot of the comic books went to a more grittier type deal to be more real because they're trying to be more appealing to the movie and TV audience before they could get that big deal and make some real money here. No, the thing gets Rock beer. And the thing also had a pointy head, if you remember how he mutated again, but we won't go there. I know you know what I'm talking about. And I remember the last conversation that you, I, and Elaine had about Ben Grimm and his Rock form, and we're not going there. Well, yes, second mutation with Sharon Ventura, aka the she thing. But nobody remembers her being in Rock form. Some people barely remember the fact that she had the Rock, the Rock, the I don't want to call it the Rock suit, but it was like a bioframe where she could still be she thing. But it just it's kind of is what it is here. Yeah, Pedro Pascal is saying that he's catching a ton of hate in the movie. Yeah, because it's the, how can I put this? Sadly to say, the younger generation and those who are diehard fans, using that in quotations, don't really have the patience to really wait to see what it's really like before they even see it to say if they really like it or not. I mean, it's the same thing that some other creators have been saying about Ironheart. Ironheart, the TV series, just it hasn't even really came out yet, but yet people are giving it poor ratings, and we haven't even seen the episodes as of yet. But again, nobody wants to give anything a try. They always want somebody to tell them what to like and what not to like. It's almost like people can't put things in their own context and everything anymore. Yeah, I am sick of sick of his lame ass. Everyone's sick of his lame ass. Is why? Wow. They shoved him down. They okay. I won't. I got a counter argument for that, but I won't go there. I actually like Lone Griffith as Reed. He wasn't too bad. He wasn't too bad, but the whole Pedro Pascal. My counter argument for that is like if they're forcing him down our throats, wasn't that kind of like the same argument about Ben Affleck being Bruce Wayne and Batman? Just saying. Just saying. Batlack was not bad. He wasn't the greatest thing, but he wasn't bad. He brought a different Batman to the cinematic universe here. I give you that. But he wasn't bad for playing Bruce and Batman. I mean, but again, sometimes you just have to get the best actor that you can to play the role here. Now, fan hate is going to be fan hate. It is what it is. I'm not going to say you have to like Pedro Pascal. I'm not saying that. But I'm also going to say you get the best actor for the role that you can. He won the role. Let's see what he does with it. Now, not to say that I haven't given certain actors a pass after they played certain characters. And you guys already know which character I'm talking about and which actress I'm talking about here. And no, I'm not talking about Gal Gadot. So get that out your mind. Not talking about her. But it just is what it is here. I mean, you know, sometimes you don't look for somebody that looks like the character. I look for somebody who can act like the character and knock the character out the park and make us believe that he could be that character. Now, I could play devil's advocate and say that a certain three letter actor may not be the best pick for to play Doom, but I know for a fact he's going to bring something unique to the table. But it is what it is here. I always supported Batlack. Yep. Oh, Yuan. But it says L. You used it as an L. It wasn't that. It's Welsh. No, that's not the actress that I was talking about. I was not talking about that actress here. Cillian Murphy. I'm trying to think where he's from and the last role that he did here. But no, that's not the actress I was talking about here. Let's just say the said actress that I'm talking about here got overshadowed by the two other actors of the same namesake characters. But I leave that alone. Oh, that's possibilities. There's possibilities in that. Because I remember Scarecrow. I remember Scarecrow and Batman Begins here. I have not watched Oppenheimer yet, so I can't really say. Yeah, Murphy is Brit. Yep. I haven't watched 28 Days Later either, but I have watched Batman Begins. And I remember the Scarecrow, so it's like I said, that's possibilities there. There's possibilities there. There's great possibilities there. So, but all of this is really what started because we started talking about Squid Game season 3, and we kind of transitioned over into the whole thing about audiences and movies and disappointments and everything to that magnitude, and how well we transitioned over from that to Captain America: Brave New World. And as much as I didn't like that they didn't stick to canon, the movie was okay. I don't have any problems with the movie. I actually enjoyed the movie despite the fact that it had no canon. It didn't stick to canon. And I was saying that people who are fans of Sam Wilson cannot go to a comic book store and find Sam Wilson Captain America books that emulated what was in the movie. It's going to be few and far between. And it's kind of a bad thing and a kind of a good thing in the same aspect here, because unless you understand audiences in that aspect here, you can't lump people in the same category. But it is what it is here. Outside of that, accountability wise here, I'm almost finished with the third part of the story that I'm working for the adult anthology series here, which means that I might have issue 3 completely done for that series soon. Which means that if worse comes to worse, I got something new for C2E to come next year. I'm still waiting for my drafters tape. It should be here this week here before I could get started on drawing Amazonia. So you might end up seeing pages of Amazonia, the pencils coming out soon here. Am I going to paste it on social media? Probably not. I might show it here. I might show it here. I might show it on Patreon. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber, you might want to take a look at that as a whole here. But with that being said, it's like I think that is the accountability aspect of it here. So I open up the floor to you guys because, like I said, this is an interactive show here. So I know for a fact that you guys got questions, and you heard me going on and talk about different things about different audiences and Squid Game season 3 and all this other stuff here. And like I said, I'm working on the art, the cover art for book 2 of Atcon. Okay, cool. Now, Alay has been doing a lot of art as of late. She's been doing a lot of layering and everything here, and she's been posting the stuff out there on the social media as well. And she's up here like, we ain't going to allow me to edit. And it's like as soon as I get more stuff done. And my go, oh, hopefully you guys probably laughed at my post earlier today, but it's sad. It's sad, but it's true. I was getting very excited because I got the email from my bank saying, "Hey, you got a brand new deposit that hit your account here." And then I looked at what was going on. It's like, oh, Amazon sent me my royalties. And then I looked at the size of the royalty. It was 8 cents. And I got depressed. I wouldn't say depressed, but I got sad. And the reason I get sad is because before Comixology got bought by Amazon, on average, I was getting somewhere between $15 to maybe $8 in royalties each and every time royalties come up. Since Amazon bought them, my average has been about a dime. Yes, 10 cents. It's laughable. it's very laughable. But at the same time, it also shows that people are reading my stuff still on Comixology. The same thing with Global Comics. But in the bigger scheme of things, I need to stick to my guns. I need to get, issues 13 and 14 Amazonia done, issues, 13, 14 of Primetime Saturday Night done, maybe 12 issues of this anthology done, and maybe a couple of others before I go out and release as places like Penguin and wherever Diamond Becomes or whatever other distributor is out there to start carrying my books here. I'm still sticking to my guns to have at least 1 year worth of material for each title before approaching a physical distributor. The reason being is that it gives you more than a year to come out with that next issue here. Why do you need to borrow a dime? That's a good question. Why do you need to borrow that dime? Yeah, Amazon is still messing with the print version of the Atcon book, but I did not get a check. But I did not get a check for the $450 a couple of months. Yeah, for a couple of months. Wow. But it's not a number one dime. It has to be the very first dime that you make. That's what makes Scrooge McDuck's number one dime number one. It was the very first dime that he made. And you remember how he made that number one dime? It was the very first time that he shined somebody else's shoes for a living as a little bitty kid. So that's what made his number one dime that powerful and that special. Shoe shining. Yep. Shoe shining. Yep. That is it. Pay her a dime for doing something. She watches the show, so I could probably do that a little bit later. But it still wouldn't be her number one dime because she probably did something else to make her very first dime. That was the whole thing. Dime for being cute. But that was the whole power of the number one dime because it was the very first money that he ever made, and it gave him the confidence that he could do pretty much anything. So that what made Scrooge McDuck's number one dime so special to him, and from that point forward, he made his vast fortune all because of that number one dime. Unfortunately for me, my number one dime did not do that. However, I'm getting close to hopefully saying that my first comic series that I did professionally would have done that. But, we'll see because we still got to keep growing and doing more and more issues here. Let's see. And it's like, my very first money I have ever made got spent in Mr. Sophie Vanilla. Oh man, that's hilarious. Okay. But saying all that to say, it's like when you really think about when you make your first dollar, especially when you come into publishing, you kind of sit back and you think, wow, that is something that I did, something unique and cool that somebody else thought the exact same way about it, that it was worth their money for it. It holds a special meaning. And we joke and kid about Scrooge and his number one dime, but that's the kind of like the feeling that you get from it. It's like it's a start. It's not the end. It's just only the beginning because you never know where something like that goes. Because it just makes you aware that you have talent in that area where somebody else sees the value up in it. And it comes back down to the other thing that I was told at San Diego Comic Con about comic books that don't have prices on it. You always put a price on it for it to have value, because if you don't place value on it, nobody else will. And I sit back and think about that. It's like, at first it's like, oh, that's some garbage, but when you really think about it, to the greater degree, they do have a point. If you don't put a price tag on your work, people are not going to value it for what it is. They're not going to pay you for the labor of it. Your labor love only gets you so far, but you have to put some type of monetary value if you expect to go out to like a comic book convention and sell it as wares. It is what it is. I don't know why I thought about that all of a sudden. I guess because we talked about number one dimes and the value of stuff, and the fact that it is an honor and a pleasure when somebody else buys your stuff, that I thought about. It's like, you know what? Maybe there's still people out there that still don't put, the price, the actual physical price on their comics. You need to start doing that. You have to put some type of value to it. Outside of that here, what else you guys want to talk about? Because we got, a little bit less than 30 minutes left in the show if we go the full 2 hours here. And I know some people probably have left to go to stupid o'clock and probably getting ready to jump into some last man standing here. KDP won't allow what? KDP won't allow what? What won't they allow? Now I'm kind of lost with that one, because I agree. KDP and most people are not good friends. We got to be frenemies. We got to be frenemies, because KDP does not always have your best interest at heart as far as distributing is concerned. It just seems like I'm getting paid more for pages read than the actual comic book being bought. And that's, to me, is a major problem. And I know some people would be like, oh, I wish I had that problem, but it is what it is. KDP does not allow me to post price on the book covers. Reason being, sadly enough, is because KDP is governing the distribution. And since they're the ones that printing your book, they also control that aspect too. But on the Kindle and Amazon website, you actually show the price here. So that's kind of like one of the things that, one of the reasons why I haven't posted like a lot of the newer books from a CGC Studios on Comixology as of yet. I believe the last issue of Primetime Saturday Night that I put out there would have been issue 0. And we have issue 4 and 5 already out. 4 and 5 already done. We got them in print and everything. I don't even think Global Comics even have issue 4 and 5 as of yet on their digital platform. And I believe the only reason I haven't done it that way is because of exactly that. I think they would hate the fact that I had the barcode with the price tag of it. Now the price tag would actually match what would have been on their site, but I just don't understand. I understand why they wouldn't do it, especially since KDP is actually doing the physical printing of the books too. It's a control distribution type deal. LDP recently demanded that we raise the prices of our comics, and 2 weeks later, and said, "Never mind." Like, nope, never mind. Yep. Because if you raise the price of your comic, guess what? You're probably going to get paid by pages read instead of by the books being sold here. I know what you meant by KDP. I knew what you meant here. And like I said, it's getting close to that time to close up because, like I said, I was a couple of minutes late because I was watching Squid Game again. And I'm at the end, and I'm not doing any spoilers. As much as much as people probably want me to do it, I'm not doing spoilers because it hasn't been out long enough for a lot of people to watch it. So no spoilers. You got a banana. You got a banana, but no cereal or no ice cream to have a banana split. Yeah, they claim that the cost of printing has gone up. Of course, because they need paper supplies and all this other stuff and everything. So not only are they going to force you as the author to force your fan base to pay more to offset their cost of printing. It is what it is. It just that's just the nature of the beast here. With all of these tariffs and tariffs and tariffs and tariffs of that and tariffs of this and everything, which is why I'm shaking an angry fist at Amazon. Not because of the KDP, not because of Comixology. I shake an angry fist at Amazon because something that I ordered 2.5 weeks ago is finally going to arrive this week. And lo and behold, they're going to probably blame everybody here. Well, hello, Michelle. Hello, Michelle. Hopefully, you are having a great day and you are coming from us from YouTube Lamb as well. So, welcome to your very first episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. I hope that you're having a great day. Everybody is greeting Michelle here. You know, everybody is greeting her. And welcome to our interactive show here. Yeah, it could be a bit of a madhouse here. We're a fully interactive show where you, the viewer, gets full access to me as a comic book creator, where we talk about things about the industry and life in general here. Right now, I think we just got through talking about the fact about something I was told at San Diego Comic-Con about always putting a price on your books here, because if you don't value your book, how do you expect somebody else to? So that's the reason why it's always good to have some type of price on the actual physical cover in some form, in some fashion here. Oh, you did. Thank you so much here. Hopefully I've been entertaining and been giving you very helpful information here. I mean, this is kind of like behind the scenes of what a publisher might think about, what we would look at when we do our stories and everything. It's just one of those things here. So if you got questions, let them rip. Let them rip. I don't have any problems with questions. Like I said, it's a fully interactive show here. We talk about a little bit of everything, from anything dealing with movies, TV, writing, comics. Like I said, this is a small press publisher you're talking to here. So we just, we try to do what we can. I try to engage those that read comics and those who read the books that we produce here the best that I can. Now, I'm not one of those ones that would sit out here and do drawing streams and everything to that magnitude, because why? I don't like doing a lot of digital drawing here. I might sit up here and do maybe like digital inking every now and then. Tried to do that with the stuff that I do for Primetime Saturday Night with Dawes Studio, and that fell on its face. So we changed the format to something like this, and it's been working for ever since here. And we said that was Elaine saying thanks for the sub here. But outside of that, it's just one of those things here. Just one of those, easy Sunday evening type shows where we talk a little bit about everything, like today. I can't wait to finish these last 2 episodes of Squid Game. And then after that, I forgot what somebody else told me that I needed to watch that's already out there. It's something on HBO Max that I'm supposed to be watching, but I can't think of it. Beanie says, where do bananas come from? A banana tree. They come from a banana tree. Yes, they come from a banana tree. Not just trees, banana trees. Because you got an oak tree, you got apple trees, you got orange trees, but you also got banana trees. And banana trees, I believe, only grow in tropical atmospheres. there, there goes the amazement here. Now, people, you gotta know that Beanie is now officially in summer vacation mode here, so she's going to be very inquisitive here. She thought they come on vines like grapes. No, no, they grow in trees. They banana trees are tropical trees here. They grow in tropical areas and everything to that magnitude. And yeah, you have to climb ladders and everything to go on top, go to climb up the tree to grab them by the bunches here. They're not like grapes that grows on a vine and everything here. I know you're barely awake. Yeah, kind of like how coconuts are. Yeah, that is correct. Like how coconuts are. So yes, they grow kind of like how coconuts are. Coconuts grow on. I forgot the actual real name of a coconut tree. So they have to grow where they always warm. Yeah, yeah. Coconuts, and now you got me thinking. Does pineapples grow on trees? That's something I probably got to look back up because I don't remember that. Not like you can have apple trees here. Yeah, you could grow apple trees in New York. You could grow an apple orchard there. You might be able to get away with oranges. You might be able to get away with oranges, but I don't think you could get a banana tree to grow very well. You could probably get a banana tree to grow in New York, but I don't think it would produce much bananas in New York weather, especially because of the winters and everything. Yeah, that's why I thought, Elaine. I was like, I just like it was for trying to remember this. Like, do pineapples grow on trees for some reason? It's just like no, no, they don't. It's just one of those things. Like when people start talking about different types of trees and stuff here, yeah, you would need like a greenhouse to produce a banana tree. Exactly, because you have to control the climate. You have to control the climate more so than anything else here. Bean says pineapple falling on my head from the tree would be out. Yeah, that would hurt. So would an apple. Depending on how big the apple tree is, an apple could hurt you that way too. Same with an orange. And pears comes on trees too. Now you're making me think what fruits do not come on trees. Most berries don't come on trees. So things like strawberries, cranberries, stuff like that are bushes. They don't come on trees. But then again, that would probably make a pineapple a berry. See, Beanie is making me think too much. Yeah, but the apple has a suit of armor like a knight on a horsey. So does oranges. So does oranges. So do grapefruits. Grapefruits come on trees too. But that's the thing. I'm not. I think pineapples are berries. It would be considered a berry instead of a tree bearing fruit. Strawberry fields forever. Yeah, they are a compound plant. Yeah. So, like you said, it probably comes off of a bush. It's a specialized bush more so than anything else. So like grapes come off of vines. Oh, cherries come from trees. And that's kind of like, I think that's the only berry that I can think of come on trees is cherry. But I don't know why we're talking about trees all of a sudden, but then again, I got cherries upstairs that needs to be eaten too. So that's a whole nother thing about it. And sitting right here is the next thing here. And if you're out there watching, help a brother out. Let them have an endorsement because he enjoys your product. Speaking of cherry, hook a brother up. I could use an endorsement deal. Considering the fact that even though I don't have that much of a subscriber base, but at least people will see the product placement pretty much on every episode here. Yeah, the berries grow on the central core and consolidates. Yeah, that's why I thought. That's why I thought about why I thought about pineapples. Yeah, peaches, nectarines, plums, and blackberries grow on trees. Yeah. Do you have the enjoy a Coke with Joe? Can no, no, I don't. Reason why? Because it's not Coca Cola. It's cherry Coke. It's cherry Coke. It's not regular Coca Cola. That's why I said. That's why I said it's like it's product placement. So, nevertheless, it is what it is here. But I don't know. This has been an interesting type of turn for events for the question about trees. That's just interesting because now you got me thinking about. But then again, that's get me back into the whole manga aspect here because there's manga need. It gave me back to the manga aspect that you could write pretty much a manga about everything. It's like, yeah, you could write a manga about growing all different types of fruit. Heck, they even did a anime called Fighting Foodons. And I went back and watched the first episode of that, and I just like sat back and it's like, wow, we actually watched this as kids and teenagers back in the early 90s for no reason other than the fact that it was just something on Saturday mornings. Because the show really doesn't make much sense anymore. For some, weird sorcerer to be able to say, yeah, I could make these incantations here to see which food would beat other foods in a fighting contest. it just seems kind of weird. Yeah. Oh, no, we can't go. No, that's already trademark. I can't do stuff like that. I don't do copyright and trademark infringement. No, I can't. Yeah, I can't. Well, their logos and stuff have appeared in comic books and manga, but we can't use it by name. We can't have their name in a story. But I don't put it past them for product placement. And the way to get away with it in video games is that some of the symbols and stuff can be used, but they can't have like the actual names, especially with like when you go back and play like the arcade version of like Bad News, it is an actual Coca-Cola can. I forgot which video game actually used the Pepsi can, the blue with the circle with the red and white thing going through it here. But yeah, there's product placement in just about anything. It's just that you just can't use the physical registered trademarks. Yeah, Pepsi, it's just it is what it is. That's why I said That's why I said I don't mind. And like I said, I don't mind. I mean, it's not like I'm up here like trying to infringe on anybody's trademark. I'm literally drinking the product right now. So I have no other recourse. It's just like if they see it, they see it. If they don't, they don't. It's not like I'm up here. It's like, hey, giving them like any type of endorsement or free advertisement, and just saying, hey, if they want to hook a brother up, they can. I do drink your product. So anyway, it is 2 minutes to midnight on the East Coast here. I know the time frame says like an hour 50 on the actual clock as far as how long we ran here. So it is that time for me to call it a day here, because I try to give the East Coast people as much as their Saturday back as possible. I only run into like midnight, for at least that way they can say they're in the future. More show. What do you want me to do for more show here? It's like if we run it longer, it's going to be 10 minutes long, because that puts us at the 2 hour mark here. So what do you want as more show? No, we got two left feet. We got two left feet. Newsstand ads. Oh, that's something that we don't do that often here. Matter of fact, nah, I already showed you guys those slabs here. The artist slab that's going to be at the next show that I'm going to be at here. But speaking of CGC here, I'm still waiting for them to finish grading 10 books for me here, of which one is the Lois Lane 106. So I am looking forward to seeing what type of grade I got off of that book itself here. But other than that, I think we have ran the gambit here, but I'm actually double checking. To see what in the world. I'm checking that account here. Nope, no changes for the 3 vintage, the Wonder Woman 205 to 206, and the Lois Lane 106. So no change there. And nothing to update with the Avengers 227, which is the when Monica Rambeau joins the Avengers for the first time. A-Force 1, another copy of Incredible Hulk 282, Action Comics 259 and 253. If you guys know what those issues are, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more, say no more. I was the first one to tell you that you should be specking one of those books here, but nobody listens. So when people realize what that story entails, then they're going to realize what it is here. I have a Gotham City Sirens #1 from the 2009 series and another Savage She-Hulk #1. And that's probably going to be my last Savage She-Hulk #1 that I ever send in, because I don't have any more. Spec on what book? I told you. You already know what book that I told people to spec on. Action Comics 592 and 593. Action Comics 592 and 593. Yep. And if you don't know why I spec'd on them, then you gotta be in the know. Then you haven't been in the know. And if you're not in the know, it's too late for you. Only because of the simple fact that it's not as well known of a story, but it's one of the more hilarious stories out there dealing with Superman. And it does tarnish his squeaky clean, the American way type aspect about his character. And that's only because he fell up under the, if I could say, the spell of a character by the name of Sleaze. But it is what it is. But I'm uneven. I have like 5 of part 1, 3, part 5. I have like 5 for part 1 and 3. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it beats that way sometimes, and I'm slowly but surely getting those graded now, because when people realize what the subject matter was, I don't know about that. Matter of fact, since you brought it up here, I did go to storage today. I did bring this out of storage here before I could get that graded, just because you mentioned that here. I don't think Barda is going to get the push. Miracle might get the push. Scott Free himself may get the push, but I don't know. And if Barda actually did get the push, can't blame me for not saying about Action Comics 592 and 593 didn't pay off. And there was a screen rant. It's like, these are the weirdest big Barda stories in history. Maybe. Elaborate, Aaron, because it's not 100% canon. It's not 100% canon. It's not a one-to-one translation. What they did in Brave New World movie was not a one-to-one translation of what they did in the books. That's what I was saying here. I didn't say that they threw everything out. They didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it's not one-to-one. These articles always do that. Yep. It's Parallax. Yeah, she hates everything. But give her some likes. Give her some life cereal. She hates it. She hates it. Sorry, you just put my mind frame right there on the whole Mikey, the old school Mikey commercial here. Oh, you just heard me earlier. Yeah. No, it just that, like I was saying before, if you watch the Brave New World movie, there's not really the equivalent of that movie to a comic book. The comic books have different stuff up in it that would throw people off. And I was saying earlier, it's like the only movie that I could think of that is that way was Watchmen, but that was a critical, if I shouldn't say critical, it was a box office failure, only because moviegoers who had no idea about the comic book could follow the movie and liked it. Comic book readers loved it because it was the closest thing to one, except for some of the things with the comedian. And I also compared V for Vendetta earlier to what was in the actual series here. So it kind of is what it is here. Let's see. That was a Hulk movie featuring the Cap. Hulk didn't. Okay. How can it be a Hulk movie featuring the Cap when the Hulk was only physically visible for like the last 20 minutes of the movie? I'm sorry. It's not exactly that here. See, I told you, she hates it. She was Mikey. Checks is better. I was right. I was right. It's like she hates it. She hates it. Yeah, that part was actually great. That part where he actually changes for the first time at the White House Rose Garden, that was beautiful. That was beautiful cinematography. I will admit that. The movie itself to me wasn't bad, but it's just, my whole thing here is like dealing with the canons with certain characters that were there, like the canon of Isaiah Bradley. So the things that happened to him in that movie, it's like his reaction would have been completely different than what it was. But I get it. These movies are not meant for the average comic book reader to say, "Yep, Isaiah Bradley would exactly do that." They do what they can to make the characters shine the way that they need to shine to get the average moviegoer to spend that hard-earned money. So that would mean that people like myself who are comic book readers would have to be on the outskirts looking in as far as getting something that was one to one that was in the books in some cases. Yeah, that was too bad that they divert from the comic book too much. Yeah, not about a whole not as much as I have Hulk Volume 1 when they actually did the Red Hulk. I think I have the greater, either all of it or the greater majority of that run unbroken. I understand how General Ross would have worked. I'm glad that they did President General Ross because it made what Harrison Ford did that much more, that much better than what it would have been if they would have got somebody else casted in that role. I mean, again, Air Force One is, kind of like the way that they was going with having Harrison Ford there being Thunderbolt Ross. Now, mind you, I would rather have the other guy who passed away that was General Ross being reprising his role, but Harrison Ford was a good replacement because he was president at the time. And he has done, presidential roles in the past. So that was a good fit. Was he a believable General Ross? No. He was a believable President Ross, yeah, but not General Ross. And that's what I believe that they was really going for. They was truly trying to show that General Ross was really trying to make the change because now he sees the bigger picture. The bad thing that I didn't like here, and I mentioned this before, and I'm probably going to mention it again, is that I didn't like how they brought back Dr. Blue, aka the leader. The way that they reintroduced him into the MCU was kind of lackluster because it didn't feel like we got the leader per se. Everything that was there, especially with the history of Hulk, the leader, General Ross, and everything was not there. And then we got Mr. A.A. Ron September bookies will have Stitch variants, 5 of them. I want them. Yeah, that was something else that we talked about over the week here, that Marvel dropped the ball of giving Lilo and Stitch another chance at their own titles here outside of Dynamite. But Marvel is just re-releasing covers. They won't do a Lilo and Stitch comic book, especially after the success of the live action movie. But that's a whole different ball of wax here. And we are now officially over the 2 hour mark here. So it is time for me to say goodnight here. I have to get back to watching Squid Games. And then after that, I got to watch my Saturday evening, or I should say Sunday morning evening anime, which would probably be One Piece at this point. But it is what it is here. Yeah, she's going to be selling some stuff, but not on camera. She won't be on camera. And yep, good night here. It's like I don't know. I like all my bookies. Even if I don't fit in my house anymore. And well, there you go. So at this point, I will say live life, grow, and be well. I'll see you here next week for another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. And we're going to have more interactive conversations just like this here. Thanks again for those that are on LinkedIn for watching, and we see you next time. Bye.